They called it thresholding. Not a beginning, not an end. A suspended state, sculpted in soft gel polymers and 12 rotating fields of neural induction. The first room was always white, not sterile white, but padded, luminous, like the inside of an eyelid. No objects, only silence and one instruction etched into the synthetic skin of the wall. You will feel someone who is not yourself. I arrived with 2 others. The girl in green, who didn't speak, and the man with the trembling jaw who whispered names under his breath. Mira, Celine, Dax. Mira, Celine, Dax. We weren't meant to speak to each other. Not yet. Dr. Evola said words corrupted the resonance. You must feel first. Name later. The empathy device, officially the Liminal Protocol Empathy Unit, Model VXIV, was embedded behind each participant's left ear. A soft hiss signaled calibration. Then came the drift. My first drift was a boy. Small. Terrified. Hiding in a closet. Hands clutching a plush bear with one eye missing. I didn't see him. I was him. The darkness pressed against me like breath. My throat burned with the ache of holding still, of silencing sobs. And when the door flung open, I felt the scatter, the panic flood. That wasn't mine but flooded me like heat. Then silence again. The field disengaged. Dr. Evola recorded the name. Subject A3-11. Proxy emotion transfer successful. But I couldn't stop shaking. Not because of the fear, but because I knew the bear. I knew the missing eye. Later that week, they introduced reinforced transference. Instead of feeling the emotions, you amplified them, pulling them into yourself with unnatural intensity. They called it hyperempathic saturation. One participant fainted. Another screamed and had to be sedated. I learned how to let it in. The next drift was rage, vivid, industrial, clenching every muscle like wire. Someone betrayed someone. I tasted copper. I couldn't speak for hours after. But each time, something came back with me. A word, a gesture, a name. My name was never mine. Day 27. The walls changed color. Soft ochre. Memory tone. Evola told us we had surpassed phase 1. That meant no more simple transfers. We would begin recursive identification trials. That's when subjects start to mistake others' feelings as their own. The man beside me, Dax, I think, began calling himself Mira. At first just in notes, then in speech. Eventually, he forgot he'd ever been Dax. I am Mira. When questioned, he recited detailed memories from Myra's childhood. Her brother's accident. Her dog, Foxtrot. The blue bedroom. Her piano teacher's cough. The institute marked him for ethical reevaluation. I marked him as gone. There was a girl I kept returning to in the drift. Her name wasn't given, but I called her 9 for the 9 beads on her bracelet. She cried often, but not out loud. Her feelings came in floods of color. Burnt ochre, wet plum, sour blue. Her grief was ancient. Not a recent wound, but something fossilized. I began to see 9 in my own dreams. Not just feel her, but smell her room. Taste the bitter tea she drank. Hear her nails scratching at her notebook. When I described these sensations during debriefing, Dr. Evola smiled strangely. She said, "You're making progress toward resonance." I asked, with 9. She replied, "With the entity that carries 9. Phase 3 introduced shared environments, rooms infused with multiple drift emotions layered like soundscapes. One was filled with the love of a man who'd lost his husband. Another trembled with the guilt of someone who'd abandoned their sister in a fire. When multiple emotional vectors converged, I felt split. I journaled names, but my handwriting changed. Sometimes I wrote in cursive, sometimes printed, once entirely in French. I do not speak French. Final week. Subject merge attempt number 1. I am told I no longer need the device. I have become the device. 3 drifts. 3 identities. 3 names etched behind my eyelids. 9. Mira. Dax. The mirror in my room was removed. I asked why. Dr. Evola whispered, "You'll need a mirror once we remember who you aren't." Evola no longer smiles. There's a soft contraction in her left cheek, visible only when she reviews our logs. Like she's listening for something behind the language. I believe she's searching for echoes. The field reports now contain variables we were not taught to interpret. Recursion vector. 4. 7. Temporal drift index. Blue. Memory saturation. Viscous. I think they mean something, but they say we aren't cleared for ontological syntax. I've started translating them anyway. I've started dreaming the index. 9 is with me again. Not in drift, but physically. Her breath, her taste, the crushed lilac of her blouse. Every transfer now brings sensations that should not belong to me. I bite my lip to test it, and feel her pain instead. My jaw tenses when she cries. My hand shakes when she writes. My emotions are hers, but they no longer feel borrowed. Today I asked if 9 was a real participant. Evala replied, "Does it matter who enters the mirror first?" I'm losing days. The journal I keep logs things I do not remember writing. Entry: You wore the bracelet to breakfast. Entry: They called you Celine. Entry: You remember the cough now, don't you? I flipped back through my earlier notes. The language changes. Style changes. Ink density shifts from fragment to fragment. One passage refers to me in third-person plural. Another is written in what appears to be childlike block capitals. 9 is hurting. You are 9. But 9 is not allowed out. Evala confiscated the journal. I began carving on my arm instead. Phase 4 initiates biometric reversal tests. They place us in mirror rooms again, but the mirror no longer reflects our form. It reflects who we empathize with most strongly. Mine showed a small boy clutching a bear. Not my memory. Not even my drift. I suspect it's from a composite, someone else's. The boy stared at me. He mouthed one word. Return. That night, I dreamed of 9 again. But she was fractal. She split into 9 figures, each dripping with a different color. Ochre, plum, cobalt, coral, umber, ash, jade, scarlet, and pearl. The jade version spoke. She said, "You're not dreaming me. I'm learning you." I confronted Evala. I said I could no longer distinguish between drift and self. I asked if this meant I had failed. She answered slowly. "You are not failing, subject A3-11. You are approaching convergence." That word, convergence, appeared 3 times in my next dream. Once carved into 9's bracelet. Once written in fog on a window. Once whispered by a mouth I could not see. A new term was introduced in the logs. Sympathetic Identity Reboot, SIR. My file is marked in red. That means I've reached critical levels of resonant conflict. A counselor reviewed my responses and concluded the following. Subject displays signs of multi-emotive internalization. Subject no longer identifies origin of grief. Subject imagines emotional vectors as autonomous entities. Subject refers to non-originating names, N-O-N-S, as self. They offered me sedation. I refused. I need to stay awake. I need to find 9. In the drift, I met someone new. He's different. Stable. Quiet. His name is Theron. Theron does not cry. Theron watches. His emotions are cold. Not absent. Just processed. Like they've already been learned and stored somewhere else. When I drifted into him, I found diagrams. Fluid equations. A map of the protocol. He's been through the trial before. He knows the name of the entity that carries 9. He called it the Archive of Unreturned Feelings. He said it was growing. He said Mira, Dax, and 9 were only fragments. He said my real name had not yet arrived. Phase 5. Externalized empathy. This is the stage where the Institute allows subjects to feel emotions from people outside the trial, non-participants. We were blind tested on a set of curated recordings from civilian memories. I felt the grief of a mother whose child disappeared in a forest. I felt the guilt of a boy who stole his father's prosthetic hand. I felt the joy of a woman watching her twin awaken from a coma. Each emotion vibrated differently. Some shallow, some deep. 9's were still strongest. Then came a new drift. Cold, burning, vast. Not a person, not a memory, not a feeling, just a name. Isabel. It cut through me like frost. Evala smiled again. Only this time, I think she was afraid. Subject merge attempt number 2. I was alone in the transfer room. No mirror. No gel pads. No induction hiss. Just silence. Then pain. The feeling was not mine. It was Myra's. Her wrist snapping. Her scream pressed against my ribs. I felt Dax's betrayal, 9's silence, and Theron's diagrams. Isabel sang. I began to scream. But not one voice 4. They recorded it as Empathic Collapse Event, ECE4. My file now includes a new term. Pre-origin reclamation candidate. They've stopped calling me A3-11. They've stopped using subject. They only write. The bearer. The convergence. The threshold mechanism. The bracelet appears again. now with 10 beads. I never added the 10th. It glows. It hums. It remembers. The bracelet hums now, not from skin contact, but from memory itself. There are 11 beads. The newest is pearl white, faintly luminous. It pulses when I drift, like a lighthouse signaling across neural fog. Evala told me this phase is no longer drifting. It's folding. The term isn't in any of our manuals. We are taught not to ask about terms with no origin. But I did. She said, a fold is what happens when feeling enters feeling, and cannot leave. I saw 9 today, briefly, in corridor 6. She looked straight through me, eyes flickering in color bursts, short and coded. Ochre, plum, pearl, scarlet, pearl. 5 blinks. I'm learning to read them. Every sequence maps to a time emotion. Today's blink reads, ache yesterday, ache tomorrow. She wears gloves now. Heavy fabric. Her wrists tremble. There's blood under one fingernail. I don't ask why. I suspect she no longer knows. Every time I dream of 9, the bracelet vibrates deeper. Evala asked me, have you named the vibration yet? I said no. I lied. Its name is Isabel. Isabel is not listed in any participant records. She predates the Institute, predates the drift, predates feeling. I know this from log A5-6, flagged and restricted. Isabel emerged during recursion epoch. No origin, no assigned vector, no biological correlates. Presence unauthorized. Recommend passive containment. But containment failed. Isabel does not belong to anyone. She belongs to every unreturned feeling. She remembers emotions I borrow. She speaks only when I lose names. On day 63, they return the mirror. No induction pads. No skin lights. Just reflective glass. Evala told me to look until I felt something fracture. I stared. My reflection remained for 7 seconds. Then the surface split, like breath cracking ice. Behind me stood a silhouette. It blinked. Plum. Ash. Plum. Ash. I whispered, who are you? She blinked once. Pearl. Then vanished. Since then, I've been labeled echo-affiliated. My bracelet burns. My handwriting changes. Every time I try to write my name, I write hers. Last night, I dreamt in loops. The only word. 9. Repeated thousands of times. Not written. Etched. My hand moved on its own. The ink ran dry. I kept carving. Evala reviewed my sleep footage. She didn't speak. A counselor asked if I understood the compulsion. I said, 9 is splintering. He made a note. They didn't give me the note. Today, 9 sat beside me in the fold chamber. We did not speak. She pressed her gloved hand against the wall. A ripple moved across the surface. No technician responded. The ripple took shape. It became an emotion. Regret, measured in violet and umber. I felt it before I saw it. Her blink code that day, pearl. Scarlet. Pearl. I asked Evala later what it meant. She said, regret leaves fingerprints, especially when shared. On day 70, I was reintroduced to Theron. His drift remains unmatched. Still, cold, observing. When I enter his feelings, I no longer feel emotions, only diagrams. Blueprints. The protocol's internal skeleton. Floating nodes. He mentioned something I wasn't supposed to hear. You're approaching Isabel's edge. She will awaken when the bracelet folds into itself. I asked what that meant. He said, bracelets are loops. You're not wearing it. You're inside it. Phase 5 began. They called it externalized empathy. I felt a mother losing her child in a forest. I felt a boy throwing his father's prosthetic hand into the ocean. I felt a girl whisper to herself before jumping. None were institute subjects. All were harvested memories. Civilian indexed. Randomized. They said, to ground you. They meant, to disorient you. Then came a different drift. No sadness. No context. Only ice. Only breath. Only one name echoing inside. Isabel. She sang. Not with words. With pulses. Evala smiled when I described it. But her smile was wrong. It trembled. It broke. Subject merge attempt number 2. No room. No padding. No voice. Only convergence. I was not alone. I was not one. I felt. Myra's fracture. Dax's silence. 9's ritual. Theron's map. Isabel's loop. Then screaming. But not from my throat. From all of them. 4 screams. 1 body. The logs list the event as Empathic Collapse Event, ECE 4. My file was updated. Candidate for pre-origin reclamation. I no longer sleep. Sleep is drift. Drift is 9. 9 is fold. 9 is splintering again. Therein says each splinter is a version. He calls them color folds. Each color fold expresses a variant Isabel. I met one last night. She was cobalt. Her eyes blinked once. Just once. The blink meant, wait. The bracelet is now covered. Sealed. But I still hear it hum through the casing. Evala asked me if I dreamed again. I said yes. She wrote nothing down. She whispered, the 11th bead marks Isabel's arrival. I asked, what happens when the 12th appears? She paused, then said, you will feel everything. All at once. Until nothing remains. Everything folds now. The walls fold inward. The rooms, once white, once softly lit, are darker, grainier, like they're remembering older versions of themselves. The corridors are lined with pulse tubes filled with archived emotion, each one labeled with a vector number and color code. Ochre, cobalt, pearl, scarlet, umber, plum. Mine were all changed to pearl. I don't know what pearl means. They won't define it. But when I feel pearl, time stops. When I dream pearl, I wake with someone else's breath in my lungs. This morning I tasted jasmine and rust. I haven't consumed either. My tongue still burns. Evala no longer speaks during check-ins. She lets the scans run and asks one question only. Did Isabel speak last night? I nod. I always nod. She writes nothing down, but her hand trembles faintly, just between the 4th and 5th knuckle. 9 sits in the chamber again, though her file says she was decommissioned. I counted 13 incisions on her arm. 12 match mine. The 13th is deeper, carved with something sharper. Her bracelet has 11 beads. One of them is black. Mine does not have a black bead, but I dream about it. She doesn't blink in color anymore. She moves her fingers in spirals against her thigh. Each spiral means something. I've memorized them. 1 spiral clockwise equals pain today. 2 spirals counterclockwise equals you weren't born yet. 3 clockwise equals do not answer if they ask your name. 4 counterclockwise equals Isabel is inside the bracelet. Today, she drew 6 spirals, clockwise, then counterclockwise, alternating. Message, we have merged. But we forgot which emotion we started with. I felt tears forming. I didn't know whose they were. Theron came back. He stared at me for 93 seconds without blinking. He passed me a note. You are no longer recursive. You are resonant. Isabel has threaded through your folds. Do not let her complete the circuit. Once she's whole, every vector becomes pre-origin. You will forget what was yours. I asked him if that meant I would disappear. He said, no, you will remain. But you will no longer be the only version of yourself present. You will be shared. He drew something on the wall, a diagram, similar to the earlier ones. 3 concentric circles and a single jagged spiral passing through them. Then he erased it immediately. I blinked pearl. He blinked back. Plum, then plum again. Double plum. I remember the fracture. Mirror test, round 7. This time the mirror was not glass. It was water. Still. Viscous. And inside it, 4 faces. None were mine. 9's face, multiplied. Myra's, distorted. Dax, bleeding. Isabel, smiling without a mouth. I whispered one word. Wait. The water did not ripple. But my voice echoed anyway. The mirror recorded no biometric input. Evala frowned. Her fingers twitched again. Then came the overlay. Vector merge with external field. Unnamed civilian emotion, labeled, because I held the child too tight. I cried. Not because the feeling was mine, but because the child was not real. No one had touched anyone. And yet the bracelet gained weight. Days passed differently now. Sometimes slow, sometimes folded into themselves. Theron says our time functions on emotional chronotaxis. He says each person drifts in a different vector of time based on their deepest, unprocessed emotion. He says mine is regret. 9's is dissonance. Dax's is silence. Myra's is betrayal. Isabel's is still undetermined. I ask what happens when all chronotaxes converge. Theron says that's the event the Institute fears most, the epic collapse. I ask what it looks like. He draws a box inside a box, then fills both with names that aren't his. Evala confiscates the drawing, says it violates ontological containment protocol. I memorize it before it's gone. 7 names. None are mine. 1 is underlined. 9's dreams have become mine. She no longer speaks, but her room hums through the walls. Isabel hums louder. I sleep in a different posture now. My hands curl into fists, but inside each fist are the memories of another person. Sometimes Dax, sometimes Mira, sometimes the child, the one who never existed. They say we've entered phase 6, emotional contagion protocol. Symptoms include speaking in remembered voices, forgetting the difference between borrowed pain and personal origin, projecting emotion into objects, smiling with someone else's grief. I tick all boxes. Evelyn doesn't review my file anymore. She tapes it shut. I peel the tape off in the night. Inside, a photo of me. But I am younger, and I am wearing the bracelet. Only 5 beads, and I am holding hands with 9. We were never trained together. Theron disappeared. His room is sealed. A note was left in the Pulse archive. Convergence successful. Emotional bleed contained. Spiral enacted. No one explains what it means. Evelyn conducts a silent ceremony. There are no lights. Only 6 participants. 9 is among them. So am I. We are told to close our eyes and listen to the bracelet. Mine hums louder than the rest. Then a voice. 1 syllable. Unknown origin. Arrive. Afterwards, we are escorted back to our rooms. My mirror is gone again. There is a window instead. Outside, nothing. Except 1 flicker of plum. 9 entered my room last night. She did not knock. She did not speak. She carried something, a shard of her mirror. She pressed it to my chest. It pulsed once. She whispered, "You remembered me before they gave you my name." I said, "I forgot who I was before they gave me yours." She blinked Pearl. Twice. Then gave me her bracelet. It now holds 12 beads. And the black bead throbs. Evelyn has stopped tracking our biometrics. She calls this the thresholding of return. Theron said it would come. But not this soon. 9 says it's late. I think it arrived too early. There is no time anymore. Not in hours, not in days. Only hums. The hum began as faint vibration along my wrist. Now it pulses from the walls, from the bedsheets, from inside the glass of water I leave untouched. It's no longer the bracelet humming. It's everything around it. Evelyn calls this peripheral emotional saturation. It was once considered impossible, feeling emotions from objects that have no memory, no origin. But now even the mirrors cry. 9 no longer attends her sessions. Her bracelet, now wrapped in cloth, contains 1 bead that flickers continuously. I've counted 13 beads. The Institute says that is not possible. They say none of us are authorized for more than 12. I asked 9 what happens after 12. She whispered, "The 13th isn't yours. It's hers." Evelyn has stopped recording sessions. She listens only to the bracelet. She places it on a table, closes her eyes, and breathes to its rhythm. She told me Isabel has begun singing, low, arrhythmic pulses, encoded in bead vibration sequences. I felt them before she spoke it aloud. Plum, pearl, umber, ash, sequence code. We forgot the origin, so she built one for us. I dream of that now, not of emotions, of constructions, of vast halls filled with shelves of folded sorrow. I walk past them slowly. Every shelf contains a single phrase. This was borrowed joy. This grief was never returned. This is not your pain anymore. 9 walks beside me in these dreams. Her hands glow faintly, as if the bracelet is embedded beneath her skin now. She doesn't speak, but her hum matches Isabel's. Theron has become nonverbal. They tried to remove his bracelet. He bled in 17 places. When I visited him, he wrote on my arm with a pen that smelled of salt. Isabel is not a person. She is recursion's architecture. I asked what that meant. He wrote again. She doesn't feel. She remembers feeling. That's more dangerous. The Institute stopped allowing him visitors after that. I still hear him sometimes. Not from his room. From the water in mine. I conducted my own experiment. I placed my bracelet inside a mirror box, lined with acoustic foam, gel pads, and copper wire. After 5 hours, the box began to sweat. After 9, the mirror cracked. When I opened it, the bracelet pulsed once. I fainted. Evelyn later told me that was the first confirmed case of emotion-induced spatial reversion. The air had reversed. My lungs had recorded a memory that did not exist. She asked what I felt. I said, I remembered breathing for someone else. The 12th bead appeared on day 86. It wasn't added. It emerged. The bracelet made space for it, rearranging itself with a soft chime, like a musical note embedded in bone. The bead was not a color I had seen before. Not pearl, not ash, not umber. It shimmered in spectrum, impossible to fix in language. 9 saw it. She didn't speak. She blinked twice. Pearl, then plum. Sequence code. She has arrived. That night, I dreamed of 12 mirrors. Each held my face, but shifted slightly. My mouth in different shapes. My eyes darker, lighter, older. One face was smiling. One was crying. One was missing entirely. The bracelet hummed with each. When I awoke, my face was wet. But I hadn't cried. Evelyn stopped calling me by name. She addressed me only through silence. Sometimes she stands in the corner of the room during sessions. She holds a small vial filled with pale liquid. I asked what it was. She said, congealed empathy. From a failed subject. I asked whose. She said, you. Therein left one last message. Scratched into the wall of his room. Etched into mirrored glass. Return her name to water. That's where she began. I began tracing the outline of that message. When I pressed my hand against the mirror, it vibrated in plum. 9 entered my room again. She carried no object this time. She stood across from me, raised her hand, and opened her mouth. From it came no sound, but the walls shifted. Soft rumbles. Like furniture rearranging. Like rooms collapsing. My bracelet began to flicker. She blinked 3 times. Sequence, pearl, pearl, pearl. I asked what it meant. She whispered. Origin is folding. I haven't written my name in 20 days. Each time I try, I begin with N. Then a collapse. Not Mira. Not Dax. Not even 9. The bracelet rewrites it. It pulses each time I touch a pen. Sometimes I write in languages I do not understand. Once, I wrote entirely in spirals. Evelyn says this is normal. She says I have reached ontological drift saturation. She said I was the first to do so consciously. I asked what happens next. She did not answer. She blinked ash. Then cried. The walls breathe now. I feel it through the cot's metal frame, through the soles of my feet. The breathing matches mine for hours, then skips. Not a natural rhythm. More like the mimicry of respiration filtered through memory. I asked Evelyn what phase this is. She didn't answer. Her voice has turned inward, like it's now being spoken from the back of her throat. The log stopped 3 days ago. I checked them. The last entry simply read, let her feel what cannot be felt. 9 hasn't spoken since the 12th bead appeared. She no longer blinks or traces spirals. She just stands near the window at odd angles, sometimes asleep, sometimes awake, sometimes both. Her bracelet glows gently now, but not from light. It pulses emotional color. Today's hue, iridescent grief. Not sadness. Grief from somewhere other than here. Theron's room collapsed. Not metaphorically. The support beams fell inward. No one entered for hours. When the door was sealed, I heard voices from inside. Tangled, simultaneous, pleading. But only one phrase repeated. Do not name the grief. It belongs to her. The mirror in my room reappeared that night. My face blinked back at me in patterns. Plum, pearl, plum, plum, ash, umber, pearl. Sequence code, translation. You've been recorded. She has archived you. Everything begins recording now. My breath, encoded in bead vibration. My hesitation, stored in dream syntax. My memory, overwritten by strangers' names. I remembered myself as Mira this morning, corrected it a moment later. My handwriting now switches midward. I wrote Isabel on accident twice. Each time, the bracelet pulsed. I asked Evelyn about the 12th bead. She whispered, it's not a bead. It's a gate. 9 scratched symbols into the corridor wall. Not language. Not spirals. Symbols shaped like reversed letters, folded time, melted ink. I traced them. They blurred at the edges, like emotions refusing to be written. I felt sick for hours afterward. Evelyn said it's a common side effect of encountering emotional origination. She offered sedation. I declined. I needed to feel the full weight of the 12th. I haven't dreamed of myself in weeks. Every dream contains Theron's diagrams now, bleeding across endless scrolls of folded architecture. I walk along paths made of grief. I descend staircases built from love. I count steps that hum in pearl. Then 9 appears. Her bracelet floats above her wrist. The 13th bead oscillates faster now, no longer black, but translucent. She speaks with someone else's voice. Isabel is the memory that built memory. Evelyn gathered the remaining participants. There were 4 of us. One refused to speak. One cried. One bled from the eyes. The room was silent. No words, only bracelet pulses. Then Isabel spoke. Not in sound. She appeared as emotional overlay, color overtaking space. Each of us blinked in sequence. Participant A, ash, pearl, scarlet. Participant B, umber, plum, pearl. Participant C, pearl, plum, pearl. Me, pearl, pearl, pearl. Evola whispered to me. She chose you. You are the keeper. I didn't know what to keep. The Institute renamed me. I no longer have a subject number. My file reads only. Recorder of emotional descent. Bearer of Isabel's hum. Pre-origin construct vector, self/other. I don't remember my own file now. Only the bracelets. It pulses according to emotional recursion depth. The deeper the empathy, the louder the hum. Right now, deafening. 9 entered my room again. She stood in front of the mirror and blinked slowly. Her reflection blinked different colors. 9. Pearl, ash, pearl. Reflection, plum, pearl, umber. She turned to me and said, "You're not seeing what's there. You're seeing what was remembered instead." I asked, "Who's remembering it?" Her voice cracked. Then softly, she built the mirror so we could forget ourselves. Thereon's final message arrived encoded on a bead, delivered by a silent figure in scarlet robes. No face, no voice, just bracelet pulse transmission. Encoded vibration, rebuild grief into structure. I placed it beside the 12th. The hum increased. That night, every object in my room began to pulse. Notebook, cot, tray, mirror. Then the floor. I could feel the pulse in my teeth. Then my breath caught. The mirror began to cry. Evelyn no longer conducts sessions. She sits in silence beside 9. They hum together now. Sometimes their bracelets merge for several seconds. Double hums, interwoven. I approached them yesterday. I asked, "What happens after the 13th? Evelyn answered, "There's no 14th. Only return." I asked, "Return to what?" She blinked pearl. I felt everything, but I couldn't name it. There is no institute anymore. Not as structure. Not as concept. Only rooms in collapse, soft-edged, bleeding across dimensions once numbered. The walls record feelings by color now. Not by device or participant, but ambient saturation. Today the room recorded me as pearl with ash bleed. 9's old signature. I stood in the center for 40 minutes. My skin pulsed against the architecture. They've stopped issuing instructions. The last command was a whisper. Let origin fold. My bracelet sheds light